A young woman risks everything out of love for her family and country and becomes one of the greatest warriors China has ever seen. And that warrior's remarkable courage that drives her through over a decade of a grueling war against an impressive foe, gaining them the respect of their peers and of the emperor himself. The Ballad of Mulan has been interpreted hundreds of ways and in many different media forms in the centuries since it was first told, and it still intrigues us to this day, as with any story that survives that long. The message and themes of each retelling can change according to the times, culture, and even to the whim of the storyteller. Many storytellers keep their works grounded in the reality that the original portrayed, preferring the focus on the harshness of war, while others use the intriguing story to craft a fantastical tale. Which brings us to today's topic of two of the more recent versions of Mulan: China's Mulan Rise of the Warriors historical fiction, and Disney's Mulan's historical fantasy. Mulan Rise of the Warrior, or just Swan Mulan, was released in China in 2009. Directed by Jingle Ma and starring Zhao Wei as Mulan. This take is vastly different than either of the Disney versions, with no supernatural elements implemented into the plot whatsoever. The action war film quickly pushes through the beginning of Mulan's story, spending only around 5 minutes of it altogether, and having her already be a proficient fighter, because that's not what this movie is about. Instead, our real intro to the movie is when she eventually enters the army. She meets up with a childhood friend, Fei Xiaohu, or Tiger, who figures out her secret but agrees to keep silent, and makes a few friends in her group along the way, notably Wentai, the sub-commander and future love interest. Due to some rightful retribution against the commander's nephew, he had been screwing with him at the time, and then a misunderstanding, don't worry about that right now, watch the movie, you'll understand. Mulan is imprisoned and is scheduled to be executed. As time is close to the execution, the enemy named the Ronins attack, which gives Wentai ample time to release Mulan, and he orders her to leave. She does not, however, and instead stays to fight. Here is where Mulan shows her proficiency in battle, riding in on a horse and killing multiple of the enemy, eventually making it to the general of the group that attacked them. She eventually defeats him in the fight and pins him to the ground. However, unlike all the other soldiers she killed along the way to get to him, she actually sees the fear in his eyes as she's about to end his life, and hesitates before being ordered to kill him on the spot, which she does. But the feeling we see in her face as she's just absorbing what had just happened brings us to the theme of the movie. Killing someone in cold blood and watching the soul drain from their body is only the beginning of how war can change a person. Due to her courage in battle and defeating the Roaring General herself, she is promoted and pardoned. Over the next decade of war, she continues to fight, eventually becoming a general. However, also losing some of her friends she made along the way. Each one hits harder than the last, till the apparent death of Wentai throws her over the edge. She breaks down and decides that war is not worth the destroyed lives it leaves behind. Tiger eventually convinces her to lead her men into battle once again, and she uses her anger to become an even better general than she was before, fueling a more impressive push on the enemy than she had ever done. The original story of Mulan may or may not be fictional, but the time period it resides in has much historical value in it. This may be an action film, but it gives an insight to the ancient Chinese beliefs and the views that their society held at the time and still continue on to this day. Now, this was just a brief overview, and I'd recommend you watch it yourself to see how the story ends, as it is very different from the ending you're used to if you watch the original Disney Mulan. You can find this movie on YouTube, Funimation, and in certain countries on Amazon Prime. If I got anything wrong, please do inform me. All my sources are down below. Feel free to fact check everything. We don't need any more false information out there nowadays, do we? Next time, I'll be going over Disney's remake of Mulan in part 2 of Mulan, China's historical fiction versus Disney's historical fantasy.